return to land and building taxes in phases. The first phase of bringing the tax back was to treat with commercial properties. The second phase was agricultural properties. And the third phase is the residential. So as I speak to you now, arrangements are already in place, put by this UNC administration, for land and building taxes to come back into being after September 7th. That was done by Larry Hawaii when he became Minister of Finance. So for anybody telling the population that this PNM coming into office will bring back that tax is the highest level of dishonesty.
I recognize the member for Superior.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker, and thank you, honourable members of this House. Let me categorically state I own no properties outside of Trinidad and Tobago. In fact, I own no properties in Trinidad and Tobago. There be family members who do. So I want to put that on the record, because this comment comes not only from the member for Diego Martin Northeast, but a similar comment came from the member for Diego Martin West, the Prime Minister of the country. So I state categorically, I have no properties outside Trinidad and Tobago. I own none, and I have no interest whatsoever, proprietary interest in any such properties. So let me see, the Honourable Minister took us back on a historical journey. On a historical journey, talking about land and building taxes from 1920 to... But that 1920 law, over all these years, was repealed in 2009 and replaced by the Property Tax Act in 2009. So why this long looking back in your review mirror to talk about something that does not apply in the law of Trinidad and Tobago? Then the minister says, and of course really has to bring the member for Superior into the fray, I committed to a tax, saying it was property tax, and that the member for Superior, then Prime Minister, was sitting next to Minister Hawaii, and I was at my desk. Let us make it very clear. That is not what Larry Hawaii said. Whenever. Let me categorically state, I own no properties outside of Trinidad and Tobago. In fact, I own no properties in Trinidad and Tobago. There be family members who do. So I want to put that on the record, because this comment comes not only from the member for Diego Martin Northeast, but a similar comment came from the member for Diego Martin West, the Prime Minister of the country. So I state categorically, I have no properties outside Trinidad and Tobago. I own none, and I have no interest whatsoever, proprietary interest in any such properties. So let me see, the Honourable Minister took us back on a historical journey. On a historical journey, talking about land and building taxes from 1920 to whenever. But that 1920 law, over all these years, was repealed in 2009 and replaced by the Property Tax Act. So why this long looking back in your review mirror to talk about something that does not apply in the law of Trinidad and Tobago? Then the minister says, and of course really has to bring the member for Superior into the fray, that then Minister of Finance, Larry Hawaii, committed to a tax, saying it was property tax, and that the member for Superior, then Prime Minister, was sitting next to Minister to a good and fair tax. And thereafter, Minister Hawaii, in an article, Trinidad Guardian, 22nd August 2015, had this to say. No. Just before the election, sir, the Minister Immert, who was then opposition member, and then opposition leader, Dr. Keith Christopher Rowley, both made that comment of words said and spoken supposedly by then Minister Hawaii, that he was saying he's supporting the property tax, that he is going to put it in 2015 after the election and resident, all the other taxes. This is what the truth is. And we say, great is the truth.
And it shall set you free.
And it shall prevail. Great is the truth, and it shall prevail. Article, Guardian, 22 August 2015. Gail Alexander. Finance Minister Larry Howard has said that opposition PNM leader Dr. Keith Rowley is completely wrong in his claim that the People's Partnership was implementing a property tax regime originally developed by the previous government. Article continues. Howard was responding to claims Rowley made at Thursday's PNM manifesto launch just before the election in 2015. But Howard, in a statement issued yesterday, stated, it must be said clearly, the people of TNT can completely dismiss this claim as utterly false. No property tax has been implemented or is being planned for next year by the Kamala Persad-Vicessa administration. Howard continues, I can state categorically that Cabinet has not considered, nor has the matter been brought to Cabinet for consideration at any time in the last 2 years. Any such claim is completely without basis and must be considered a total fabrication intended to create fear and anxiety.
Email this again.
The minister stated in January of this year, when the Prime Minister and government moved to make spending adjustments in light of falling energy prices globally, a commitment was made, and we intend to keep that commitment that the most vulnerable will not of adjustments. Following the address to the nation on 8th January, we then met with energy sector stakeholders, as well as larger commercial interests in consultations on how we can reform our tax regime. During those discussions, prelim consultations were held on a possible industrial land tax for the very large companies, primarily in the energy sector. How I added, I would emphasize that I have consulted on the sequences of an industrial land tax and subsequently land and building taxes on residential and commercial properties. The feedback I have received, one, that we should consider carefully the tax burden on individuals and businesses and the effect it can have on new investment, and two, that the process of implementation will be long and drawn out and will not provide immediate cash flow benefit to the Treasury. As a consequence, the matter has not gone forward. This is the truth. This is true, it's then, but will not tell us what has happened to make them change their minds. So, for example, in that debate, I recall my own contribution, but I remember another member of the Honourable House had also put forward one of the most passionate arguments against the destructive punitive property tax. The Hansard record of Friday, December 18, 2009 show that that person would be none other than the Honourable Member for Diego Martin West, Dr. Keith Rowley. Back then, he stood up against his own PNM government, and said, yes, then Prime Minister Manning, I know many people in this country, and I quote from the Hansard, for whom $100 is much money. There are many people in this country who are struggling to make ends meet, and such persons, whether 200, 500, or 600, they are living at the margin. He continued in that debate. In my constituency, there is anger, anxiety, and resentment in the government's priorities, and they are afraid that, as they are faced with this taxation, the monies could be used for things they would not approve of, especially in a climate where the government is given the impression, and the only thing to ameliorate or to remove the anger, the resentment, and anxiety associated with this tax is for the government spokespersons to come clean and say what we are doing. Continuing, imagine every single word, Mr. Deputy Speaker, of the Honourable Member for Diego Martin West still rings so true today. And I ask, what's 15 years? Whatever happened, what shaped in PNM Manifesto property tax? On August 20th, 2015, during the launch of the PNM Manifesto before that 2015 election, then Member of Parliament for Diego Martin West, Dr. Keith Rowley, stated his intention not to reinstate the property tax as had been previously discarded by the partnership of. And he said plans for the old land and building taxes system. Ria Rambali then of CNC3 asked, one of the more contentious issues in the last general election was that of the property tax. Where in the PNM manifesto is this addressed? Minister, well, not minister, then MP Colin Imber's response was, it is not in the document. And this is one of the things we need to talk to people about, just like the other things. Dr. Rowley's response, let me take that one. I'm glad you raised that. I heard a UNC minister, I think it was the famous Prakash Ramhada, telling people that the PNM will bring back the dreaded property tax. Telling people, this is just before the election in 2015.
Live from the Hyatt Regency Hotel, the People's National Movement to
Dreaded property tax. The dreaded property tax. Anybody telling the population that this PNM coming into office will bring back that tax is the highest level of dishonesty.
Will bring back the